Team building in Wuthering Waves used to be fun, but now we got Zani, Cartethyia, Pheobe, Ciaccona. These are all characters reliant on one another to even accomplish the simple things. Zani was the worst, requiring either Pheobe or Spectral Rover to apply Spectral Frazzle stacks or she's useless, but Cartethyia isn't as bad, right? Well, Cartethyia has some amazing partners that you wouldn't even expect, and for those of you who skipped Ciaccona, you're in for a treat to know that she's still quite good with certain characters. I'll be assuming that you're using Aero Rover as the healer in the party because they are without a doubt the best option for Cartethyia, but the secondary DPS slot, that's free for the taking. My name is VoidEnigma, and I'll be talking about Cartethyia's best partner, and the good and the bad with and without them. We will discuss Ciaccona first to give you the best case scenario with Cartethyia, and then we'll talk about her other options. Slash that subscribe button like Cartethyia's liberation creating ass cracks in a random mountain, and let's enter the void of Cartethyia. Before we begin, we gotta talk about Ciaccona, whom was made for Cartethyia. Hands down. Her outro doubles arrow erosion damage, and she applies erosion off-field through her liberation, and she is just a good DPS and grouper. You see, the amount of erosion Ciaccona applies is phenomenal. She is the best support for that reason alone. A place where Cartethyia struggles is against multi-wave content. Once you kill the enemy with arrow erosion, you need to apply a fresh stack, and that is just damage shattering, considering how Fleur de Lis requires high stacks. Ciaccona, however, sings songs and blesses the enemy's ears with a constant stream of erosion stacks, so you won't struggle as much with that. She really smooths out the rotation, doesn't require much swaps, and allows Fleur de Lis to focus on what she's made for, dealing damage. Without her, you have to do mental gymnastics to manage the stacks with just Aero Rover. There's a way to do that, and we'll get to that later, but the best part about Ciaccona is that she allows Fleur de Lis to actually get access to some of her most damaging moves. Her basic attack 5, her aerial attack 2, and her resonant skill 2. Those deal significant damage, and they eat the erosion stacks. Thanks to Ciaccona actually continuously applying stacks, she's able to use all of those portions of the kit. Without Ciaccona, who else can really take advantage of Cartethyia's kit? Let's talk about the vital part of Cartethyia so that you can know how to function with these next characters. She needs to maintain 5 stacks of erosion in order for her liberation to deal significant damage. Remember, it's 5 stacks, although stick stacks gives her a bit more damage amp. So how do we get those stacks without Ciaccona? Well, it's simple. The general rotation is as follows. Intro into Cartethyia, that gets you 2 stacks on the enemy. Heavy attack, normal attack 4, and resident skill will get you a total of 5 stacks. Now, you activate the liberation and go into Fleur de Lis. Remember how I discussed certain parts of Fleur de Lis's attacks actually eating the erosion stacks? Well, we're going to actually avoid doing her grounded basic 5, her midair basic 2, and the second resident skill. We want to definitely avoid any of those because they're going to reduce the stacks and we will not be able to keep up and have 5 by the time we're ready to unleash your liberation. We want to focus on the first parts of the basic attack, and we can use the first resonant skill, but we don't want to actually complete any of these actions. You can dodge cancel through them and just keep that up and build up your gauge so that you can actually do her liberation. This is needed to maintain the stacks. Now before you even do all of that, we need to actually max out the stacks, right? Well, we have 2 ways of doing so. When you actually swap into Fleur de Lis and your forte gauge isn't filled, you can swap back to Cartethyia and do normal attack 4, and you'll get that 6 stack and you'll be good to go. Or, you can swap to Cartethyia and then swap to another character, quickly trigger their outro and go right back into Cartethyia to apply 2 stacks of arrow erosion. This will actually let you reduce the stack on the enemy and using one of those big damaging moves at least once. You gotta be on Cartethyia pre-swap though, or you actually will not get Cartethyia's intro, you'll get Fleur de Lis's intro, which is completely different. And that, my friends, is where most resonators want to be swapped in, such as our next character, Sanhua. The goated 4-star Sanhua is an excellent go-to. Firstly, she takes about 4 seconds to do her entire rotation, and she buffs the primary damage source of Cartethyia, basic attacks. Using her is quite simple, it doesn't require a bunch of time. You'd essentially use Sanhua to buff Fleur-de-Lis in her short window of damage. I find it best to do so when you actually have set up all your stacks first, like I just explained, but you can just swap to her early if that's more preferable for you. While this is a significant downgrade from Ciaccona, it will work, and it will clear content. Also, with the Moonlit set, despite giving a massive attack buff, it actually does buff Cartethyia despite her being HP scaling. You need to use the Echo skill, because this is going to give you a 12% damage buff when you actually swap into the next character. Our main, Aalto, finally has a place in a proper team, thanks to his amazing outro, buffing arrow damage. While Cartethyia utilizes arrow erosion from her passive in her liberation, all of her damage is considered arrow damage, so Aalto's outro is very powerful. Aalto can also, I rhymed there, outro pretty quickly, and he has the added bonus of a taunt, which can confuse the enemy. His sub DPS damage is kinda decent, but you probably do want him on the Moonlit set as well, and he's just overall a decent option for Cartethyia. Now a hidden gem has arrived, and it's one that people haven't really thought of, and that's Pheobe. Thanks to Arrow Rover's specialty, converting any debuff into erosion. This is a good way of getting a lot of erosion from Cartethyia for Cartethyia without all of the effort. Sadly, it doesn't actually let Cartethyia use her full kit, as you still don't have a consistent erosion coming in, but you can keep up the stacks very nicely. So, Pheobe is able to use her Confession mode to stack up Spectral Frazzle, then you actually want to use Arrow Rover, but you do not want to convert the stacks immediately, because there's a cooldown. First, you want to activate their Forte ability and gather the arrow buff from the sword. After you trigger the enhanced Forte ability, then you want to swap out into Cartethyia, which will give you 2 stacks of erosion, and then back to Arrow Rover, and that's when you will do the conversion by activating the Resonant skill twice. This will convert all the existing Frazzle into erosion, and then you're good to go. Phoebe's purpose in this team is that of a Spectral Frazzle to Arrow Erosion enabler, which is kind of weird when you say that all together. It actually works pretty well, and it allows for Fleur-de-Lis to actually detonate a lot of his stacks. As long as there's a little bit of Spectral Frazzle on the enemy, then you can actually swap to Arrow Rover, and then renew all of her stacks, and then go back to Fleur-de-Lis to finish up. So it actually enables Fleur-de-Lis to deal a bit more damage because she's not locked to the Arrow Erosion stacks. Her actual second best in slot team is still with Ciaccona, but we can drop Arrow Rover because this team with Ciaccona and Shorekeeper is pretty damn good. Thanks to the sub DPS damage and Arrow Erosion stacker of Ciaccona, despite being mildly debuffed to having less stacks, it doesn't really matter if you can keep dealing a constant stream of damage. This team did a lot better than the other teams that I mentioned. If you don't have Ciaccona, you could do the opposite and just swap out Ciaccona for Shorekeeper, and it's about as good as the Sanhua team that we mentioned earlier. So it's definitely an option. Now, would it be a VoidEnigma video if I wasn't talking about Quickswappers, right? And those are the likes of Changli, Carlotta, Shenliao, Yang Yang, Brant, Yinlin, and Jinchi. Overall, it's okay. They can work, but it's very hard to make them work perfectly. You have to manage all of this stuff. Quickswapper, erosion stacks, erosion buffs from Arrow Rover, Arrow Rover's sword buff, and you have to manage Cartethyia swords, and you have to manage her gauge. It's just a lot to keep up with. You also have to not eat the stacks, and eating the stacks are all of the quick swap abilities that you actually want to use. And you gotta keep track of all of that for 30 seconds. Insanely difficult to do. It does work well for the likes of Carlotta because all she's going to be doing is using her Resonant skill to stop the enemy, and then her Forte circuit to again freeze the enemy, but everything else is a bit harder to take advantage of. Some insane quick swappers will be able to do it, and I might even give it a shot, but the damage output just isn't that much worth it. So, with all of the teams being said, they're still not comparable to her best in slot, right? With Ciaccona, that is. Ciaccona is still anywhere between 20 to 30% better than all other teams by my guesstimations, and that's just crazy. Still though, the best in slot teams will only clear tower by about 20 to 30 seconds faster, so keep that in mind. What bothers me the most is that she won't feel free without Ciaccona, and I just don't like that. She cannot use all parts of her kit without getting just less overall damage, and you feel locked out of some cool animations because of it, if you want to keep up your damage and make it even comparable. With that technique that I talked about where we use a double intro to get more stacks, there are ways to use some of her most damaging abilities, such as her second resonant skill, which is kind of like a mini nuke. However, you do have to learn how to do that, and it is a bit difficult to actually make work perfectly. You're really going to have to learn how to rotate Cartethyia. If only there was a resonant enigma to teach you how to do these things. If only. Oh shit, that's me, isn't it? If you want to master Cartethia's awkward yet glorious stack dance, hit that subscribe button, because only an Enigma can guide you through this madness. This has been Void, and Enigma out.